After learning that Medusa was pregnant with Xiao Yan's child, Xun'er became so angry that the little Dr. Fairy was completely stunned. The relationship between Xiao Yan and Medusa was originally entangled, but over time it became clear. Medusa's eyes became more gentle when she looked at her, and the birth of her daughter Xiao Xiao made the two completely tied together. However, when Xiao Yan reunited with Xun'er and Zhongzhou, he never dared to mention Medusa. It wasn't until he visited the ancient tribe for the first time that he plucked up the courage and confessed everything in front of Xun'er. Xun'er's reaction completely stunned the little Dr. Fairy. As we all know, after Yao Lao reshaped his body, he made Xingxiang famous for his semi-sacred cultivation, and he also received an invitation to the 20-year bar mitzvah of the ancient clan. He simply gave this opportunity to Xiao Yan and asked him to make the appointment on his behalf. In order to see Xun'er as soon as possible, Xiao Yan took Xiao Yan and others to the ancient tribe quickly. As soon as he entered the ancient clan, he was too close to Xun'er and suffered many difficulties. In a rage, Xiao Yan kicked Ling Quan, the 6th commander of the Black Annihilation Army, and then Hung Yonghao, the 3rd commander, with one hand. Only then did he seize Xun'er smoothly. After Xun'er brought everyone into the ancient realm, one day she came to Xiao Yan alone, looked at the gentle face and smiled. "Thank you for all these years." Xiao Yan didn't hide from this girl who understood her mind, and responded with a chuckle. "You mean Xiao Yan? I'm used to it. I think it's good to be able to stay with him and help him." As she said, she glanced at Xun'er and then added, "Don't say anything indiscriminately on your own initiative. I like it now, and don't want to change it." Xun'er shook her head and said with a chuckle, "If you don't say it, he is afraid that he will continue to be dull." The little Dr. Fairy was non-committal when he heard the words, stared at Xun'er for a moment and then suddenly said, "I think you should know something else." Xun'er raised her eyes and asked calmly, "What are you referring to?" The little doctor hesitated for a moment, and before she could speak, Xun'er had already looked at the stars in the sky and said softly, "You mean Medusa or Kailin?" Hearing this, the little doctor sighed. "You really know, but why do you pretend to be ignorant in front of him?" Xun'er pursed her lips and whispered, "What can I do if I know it? Do you want me to get angry at him and force him to kill Kailin? Others may want me to leave or hate him for this, but I know this is impossible. In that case, why bother yourself?" She paused, turned her head to look at Xiao Yan and continued, "I'm waiting for him to take the initiative to confess, and then I'll teach him a lesson to let him know that people who spend their hearts don't have good fruit to eat." The little Dr. Fairy looked at Xun'er and saw a trace of anger flashed on her face. She looked like a little woman who discovered that her husband was having an affair. After a while, Xun'er put away her expression and said with a chuckle, "Don't mention this anymore. Tomorrow is the bar mitzvah of the ancient clan. Rest early. I hope you can always be by his side." The little Dr. Fairy frowned slightly and asked, "What about you?" Xun'er didn't answer, just waved his hand, turned and walked towards the bamboo house on the mountainside. During this period, Xiao Yan never had the opportunity to confess to Xun'er. After a fierce battle with the ancient demon, he followed Xun'er into the sky curtain, and he also received part of the inheritance from his ancestor Xiao Yan. It wasn't until he was about to leave the ancient world that Xiao Yan plucked up the courage and hesitated in front of Xun'er and said, "Xun'er, there is something I want to tell you." Looking at Xiao Yan's appearance, Xun'er blinked her bright eyes, leaned her cheek lightly on Xiao Yan's chest, and said softly, "Is it about Kailin?" When she said these words, Xun'er clearly felt that Xiao Yan's body stiffened slightly. She raised her head, and as expected, she saw a stunned face. Looking at the corner of Xun'er's mouth with a little sly smile, Xiao Yan asked in amazement, "Do you know?" Xun'er buried her head again and whispered, "I don't worry about you alone. You always have to know your news before you can feel at ease. Moreover, as I am in the ancient tribe, people often take the initiative to send information about you to me, including Kailin." Hearing Xun'er self-whispering in his arms, Xiao Yan's heart surged with a warm current, and thousands of words converged to his mouth, but he couldn't say a word. Seeing Xiao Yan's stupid hands and mouth, Xun'er shook her head and murmured, "I was a little bit angry at the beginning, but after all, I can't forget you." Since I can't forget it, I have to accept it. But this matter can't be too cheap for you. As soon as Xun'er's last word fell, she opened her mouth and bit Xiao Yan's chest fiercely. This time Xun'er didn't show much mercy. After taking a bite, even the corners of Xiao Yan's mouth couldn't help trembling, but he stood still, and I didn't dare to move, and the vindictive spirit in his body was suppressed as much as possible, for fear that the rebound of power would cause harm to Xun'er. After a while, Xun'er slowly raised his head, pretending to stare at Xiao Yan fiercely. See if you dare to spend your heart in the future. Looking at Xun'er's slightly opened red lips, Xiao Yan couldn't help it anymore. A touch of heat quietly surged in his heart. He lowered his head abruptly and greeted Xun'er directly in his astonished eyes. After being suddenly attacked by Xiao Yan, Xun'er's delicate body instantly stiffened, and a touch of blush spread from her slender jade neck like a cloud of fire, reaching the tips of her delicate ears. At this moment, the goddess of the ancient race has completely fallen. However, just as Xiao Yan was holding his slender waist and preparing to push forward, a light cough suddenly sounded in this quiet bamboo forest. This sudden light cough separated Xiao Yan from Xun'er like an electric shock. The two looked around and saw a middle-aged man in ordinary clothes standing not far away. The familiar face was the patriarch of the ancient clan, that is, Xun'er's father Gu Yuan. Xun'er suddenly became extremely crimson, and after twisting Xiao Yan fiercely, he quickly fled back to his room. Xiao Yan looked at his future father-in-law embarrassedly and could only make a dry laugh.